Hello and welcome to our video instruction on sulfur hexafluoride and its decomposition products in gas-insulated, metal-enclosed, high-voltage switchgear. SF6 switchgear for short. Please start the video now. The basis of this verbal instruction is the in-company instruction sheet for safe handling. Details concerning specifically your work must also be dealt with here. If your superior has not already done so during the video instruction session, he will do so afterwards. In-company instruction sheets are, as you will be aware, divided into individual sections, and these will provide us with the structure for our video instruction. First of all, the hazardous substance with which we are dealing, sulfur hexafluoride and its decomposition products, i.e. contaminated SF6. Gas-insulated switchgear such as this contain gaseous sulfur hexafluoride, SF6 for short, as an insulating and arc-quenching medium. As its name suggests, the SF6 molecule consists of a sulfur atom with 6 fluorine atoms attached. SF6 is much heavier than air. Pure SF6, or as it is known in electricians' parlance, new SF6, is colorless, odorless, non-combustible and non-toxic. In this cutaway model, we've made an invisible SF6 fill visible by means of animation. In an electric arc, the SF6 molecules decompose and then mostly recombine. During this process, reactions take place with construction materials inside the enclosure, that is to say with aluminium, copper or synthetics, and with air and moisture residues. The decomposition products which form during this process contaminate the SF6 and we obtain contaminated SF6. Decomposition products such as sulfur fluorides, hydrogen fluoride and sulfur dioxide are gaseous. Metallic fluorides, metallic sulfides and metallic oxides, solid or pulverulent. Attention! Important! Contaminated SF6 has a characteristic unpleasant odor reminiscent of rotten eggs. Let's briefly summarize. SF6 is much heavier than air. New SF6 is colorless, odorless, non-combustible and non-toxic. In an electric arc, gaseous and pulverulent solid decomposition products form. Contaminated SF6 has a characteristic unpleasant odor. We've now adequately presented SF6 and its decomposition products. Now to the topic dangers for man and the environment. Dangers can arise from SF6 itself as well as from its decomposition products. Dangers can arise when SF6 is liberated, for example, from a switchgear, from maintenance equipment or from a transportable gas cylinder. High SF6 concentrations can lead to a risk of suffocation. Why? What do you think? Emitted SF6, as represented here by animated graphics, displaces air and thereby life-giving oxygen. Because SF6 is much heavier than air, it can accumulate on floors and penetrate low-lying places where it displaces oxygen and causes the danger. The decomposition products act as irritants or corrosive agents on the eyes, on the skin, and the mucous membranes of the respiratory tract. When major quantities are inhaled, nausea and lung damage may ensue. Let's briefly summarize the dangers for man and the environment. SF6 displaces oxygen, risk of suffocation. The decomposition products may be irritant, corrosive, toxic. And now for protective measures and appropriate conduct. How can we protect ourselves from the dangers associated with SF6 and its decomposition product? The number one rule is that when any sign of a major emission of SF6 occurs, the place should be left at once or should not be entered. What kind of signs do we mean? These signs are defect or leakage indications in central control, or emission noises, for example, when a bursting disc breaks. The most important sign of an emission of contaminated SF6 is its characteristic odor, similar to the odor of rotten eggs, and then by irritation of the eyes, nose and throat. This happens before any damage to health can occur. We must now fix the following firmly in our minds. At the first sign of a major emission of SF6, leave the place immediately or do not enter it. This principle applies to everybody, to operating personnel, service personnel, and to anyone who is carrying out some other activity in the substation. Following a major emission of gas, the substation may only be entered after an adequate ventilation or if suitable breathing apparatus is worn. Let's briefly summarize. In the case of major emission of SF6, the place should be left immediately or not be entered. The most important sign of contaminated SF6 is its characteristic odor. The substation should only be entered after adequate ventilation or wearing breathing apparatus. What special regulations must you observe concerning the ventilation of the substation? What kind of breathing apparatus must you use? Additional protective measures and rules of appropriate conduct must be observed when working with or in SF6 gas compartments. SF6 must of course not reach the atmosphere. Therefore, it's necessary to use maintenance equipment for emptying gas compartments which ensures this. Connection points must be tested for tightness. This can be done, for example, by control of the vacuum gauge. Contaminated SF6 is emptied into transportable gas cylinders which carry special markings. In this way, confusion with new SF6 is avoided. So that no thermal decomposition of SF6 can occur in the event of an emission, no work involving the development of considerable amounts of heat, such as welding, is permitted during work involving SF6. Naturally, eating, drinking and smoking are prohibited during work involving SF6. The storage of comestibles in the substation, for example, breakfast or lunch boxes, is prohibited in your own interest. We're still dealing with protective measures and rules of conduct, and here we must discuss further additional safety measures which apply to special situations, that is to say, the opening of gas compartments. Naturally, gas compartments may only be opened when they have been emptied, and when the equilibrium of pressure with that of the atmosphere has been restored. When they have been emptied, what must be guarded against? What do you think? Danger can also arise from gas-free open gas compartments. In gas compartments in which electric arcing has occurred, pulverulent decomposition products may have deposited, which, as you will be aware, can damage your health. Therefore, when opening, or rather before opening such gas compartments, it's necessary to don personal protective equipment which has been made available by the employer. This can comprise protective clothing, protective gloves, safety footwear, respiratory protective devices, head protection. This applies particularly when a gas compartment must be entered. Suitably equipped, we can get ready to remove decomposition products. But of course only with equipment and cleaners which the employer has made specially available, as for example this certified vacuum cleaner. Naturally, any swirling dust has to be avoided as far as possible. It goes without saying, of course, that after finishing work, and also before breaks, we should wash face, neck, hands and arms with copious amounts of water. Let's briefly summarize the most important protective measures when working with or in gas compartments. SF6 must not be blown into the atmosphere. Maintenance equipment must be used. Contaminated SF6 must be filled only into separately marked transportable gas cylinders. Gas compartments may be opened only after emptying and restoration of pressure equilibrium with that of the atmosphere. Personal protective equipment which has been made available must be used. Only equipment and cleaners which have been made available may be used. During the handling of SF6, welding must be avoided. No eating, drinking or smoking when working with SF6. Wash after work. What personal protective equipment and other general equipment and cleaners must you use? And how are transportable gas cylinders in your place of work marked? And if something has happened, then we will naturally give first aid to ourselves or to others. If decomposition products have come in contact with the skin or the eyes, rinse with copious amounts of water immediately and call out a doctor. If the patient has breathing difficulties, he should be removed at once from the danger zone into fresh air. Contaminated clothing should be removed. He should be made comfortable and protected from loss of body heat. Then medical assistance should immediately be obtained. And now the last and by no means unimportant chapter of our instruction, namely correct disposal. Cleaning material, disposable suits, gloves and filters from gas compartments, vacuum cleaners or respiratory filling devices should not be simply thrown away, but treated in accordance with the special operating regulations and then disposed of. How is disposal arranged at your works in particular? And what rules must you follow in emergencies, that is to say, in the case of first aid? This brings us to the end of our video instruction on sulfur hexafluoride and its decomposition products in high-voltage switchgear. If he has not already done so, your superior will, as already explained, deal with the details of your workplace. We wish you good and, above all, safe working.